Concludes questions for oral answer. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Appropriation 2014-15 Estimates Bill. Interrupted debate on second reading and the amendment proposed thereto.
Honourable Hekia Parata.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. O tira huri noi tō tātou whare, tēnā koutou katoa. Me whakanui tātou tēnei tāhua pūtea, ko ki te katoa tātou te pai me te hua mō ngā whānau katoa o Aotearoa. I am pleased and proud to be standing to speak in this budget debate 2014-15. It's the kind of budget that is absolutely apposite to its circumstances. We have had 6 budgets that have had to be delivered over the course of this government, and each one has been putting in place the building blocks for a stronger economy, for a richer wealth of society, more support for the families and children who need it the most, investing in the sustainability of our country and of our people long term. This budget delivers all that it should. We've come out deftly managed by a Minister of Finance from the mess we inherited from the opposition, from the global financial crisis, and in each year the right amount of stimulus, the right amount of borrowing balanced against the right amount of investment, because we understand, unlike those opposition benches, that money doesn't magically pour through a hole in the sky. It comes from investing in businesses, backing those companies themselves to make greater investment choices, to employ more people, to offer more jobs, to articulate what skills they need, and to make sure that our education system delivers to that. So this budget reflects our main priorities: strengthening our economy, getting more growth out of it, getting better public services of the kind that my colleague was just mentioning. We don't simply fund departments to keep existing, we fund them to deliver better services, and we are getting better services from our very experienced and capable public service. We're also working in a more focused and integrated way amongst ministers across all portfolios, because again we understand, unlike the opposition, that people don't live their lives in sectors, they live their lives. And as a result of that, you can see at the heart of this budget a big heart for families and children. We are extending paid parental leave and the parent tax credit, while at the same time we're investing more into early childhood education, $155 million, that both caters for the growth we are already having in early childhood education, which itself is a sign of growth in the economy, as parents are going back to work, as more people are finding jobs and they're seeking better and higher quality early childhood provision for their children. But alongside of this, at the heart of this budget, is a significant health investment, extending free doctor's visits up to 13-year-olds and providing for those prescriptions. We have been able to do this over time because we have built the base to make that possible. And together, that $500 million package at the heart of our budget shows how much this government cares for, is concerned about, and prepared to make investments that we as a country can afford to make in the families and children of this country. I want to talk a bit more specifically about education. We've had some questions in the House today about why youth unemployment, particularly in Pacifica and Maori communities, is at the level that it's at. The answer is simple. Those young people, if they do not have the skills they need, they cannot get the jobs that are available. 84,000 jobs have been created in the economy in the past year. That means more people are getting back to work. And of that 10,000, nearly 11,000 of that are young Pacifica people. And we want to see more young people getting the opportunities to get into work, to make a life for themselves and for their families. But that has to be off the back of a sustainable investment, which is education. That's why in our portfolio we have, for the first time, gone over $10 billion, because this government puts its money where its mouth is. It knows that good quality early childhood education puts our young people on the best learning trajectory possible. We have a better public service target of 98% of all new entrants in 2016 having participated in early childhood education. We're at about 96%. Both the Pacifica and Māori communities have increased their participation, and that's great because it means they can move on into primary school with a stronger set of skills, socialised, eager, keen to participate in their own learning. We see improvements across primary school as well as into secondary school and on into secondary tertiary transitions, or at least on into training, into apprenticeships, on into more academic courses, on into employment. That happens because we do this unsexy but necessary job of ensuring that 5 out of 5 children get the best possible education they can. That means working away at the system. It means that, as I've already indicated, we've nearly doubled the investment into early childhood education. We've taken it from $800 million to $1.5 billion over the last 6 budgets. At primary and secondary school, we've increased the investment there by about 45%. And the flagship investment that the Prime Minister announced in January of $359 million was the single biggest item in this year's budget. And that is directed at how we raise the quality of teaching and leading in our schools so that we get more kids across the line, more kids able to make choices for themselves about the kinds of lives that they will live. In addition, we've recognised that our schools need day-to-day support in their operational funding, $85 million in this budget. And that $85 million keeps pace with the projected cost of inflation, which is only one factor, but an important factor. In the last 6 years, this government's put over $600 million into providing that day-to-day support for schools. We know how important it is that schools are able, and this is all their discretionary spending. That's in addition to all of the other investments that we make into schools for professional learning and development, for curriculum support, for the very strong investments we're making in properties. New schools are being built in this country. In Christchurch, of course, about 28 new schools will be built over the next 10 years. 115 schools there in all will support a refresh of the education network in Christchurch, one of the 4 priorities of this government. We can expect to see that becoming a leading education network in New Zealand, but I think in Australasia as well, because of the support we've given to that community and because those education leaders in Christchurch have risen to the many, many challenges that they have had to face over the last 3 or 4 years. And that has been supported in a wider sense by the investments that my colleague, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee, has made across Christchurch. Our government has not once resolved from our commitment to ensuring that those communities will be rebuilt, that they will continue to be a priority to us, and that we will put money in there as it is required and as it will be invested wisely to sustain the growth of that community, and education is one part of that story. We're also putting investments in education into high health needs, into reading together, into computers in homes. These 3 programs together will support some of our most needy families. Computers in homes is $3 million over the next 2 years. We expect to be able to help 1,500 more families. The Computers in Homes program does 2 main things. It helps families to become acquainted with and confident about skills to engage in the digital world. They learn how to use a computer, they learn how to access the internet, they learn how to design their own CVs, to Google jobs online, to get the information they need. At the end of the program, they receive a computer and 12 months access to the internet. But the second equally important and powerful contribution that Computers in Homes makes is that it connects with their children who are more and more being exposed to the opportunities of digital learning in our schools. This government has invested $700 million into making sure that our kids can participate in 21st century learning. Of that, we've invested in ultra-fast broadband to the school gate. We've snapped up, or we've We've ensured that the schools are wired to benefit from that connection, and my colleague, the Honourable Amy Adams, has been relentless in ensuring that not only are our contractors on time to deliver, to ensure that this is happening in schools, but actually she sometimes gets ahead of our timetable. And we have invested, and led by my colleague, the Honourable Nikki Kay, into the Network for Learning, a managed network that brings data into schools, good quality, high speed, free, 24/7 to support the best possible 21st century learning, unlimited and uncapped. A $700 million investment, and we are continuing to invest into that space, making sure that our properties are modern learning environments, fresh, light, flexible spaces, and that they are earthquake-proofed, and that we're dealing with leaky buildings. Minister Kay has overseen a renewal of that very important part of the education portfolio. Mr. Speaker, our government has prioritised 5 out of 5 learners. This budget invests to make sure that becomes a reality every day in classrooms and early childhood centres up and down our country. We are back in black.
I call the honourable member Asanati Loli Taylor to